Hello everybody! Andrew here from the JavaScript Bard, where I introduce you to interesting and practical tools and techniques that you can implement on both the client side and server side of your JavaScript web applications. Today, we're going to be looking at one of the core concepts of React.js, the difference between props and state. Props can sort of be thought of as passing an argument to a function, where, at least in JavaScript, once you pass that value, it's there to stay, it's immutable, you can't change it. Whereas state, you can actually change the value based on the current state of the component. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss any future videos, and let's get into coding a very quick and simple example to show you the difference between the two. So as you can see, I've set up the scaffolding for a very basic React app by running npx create React app. What this does is sets up a React application for us and also configures Webpack so we don't have to deal with any build configurations and we can just get started creating. So it says run yarn start to start our development server. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run npm start. It runs the same script. And as you can see, we have a React app all set up and ready for us. So I'm going to go into app.js here in the source directory, and this is where we're going to be working exclusively for this tutorial. So I am going to get rid of all of the template there, except for the div with the class name app, and we're also going to get rid of that logo import up at the top. So we should have a blank page. We do. Now I'm going to create a class-based component. There are two kinds of components in React, functional and class components. If you're curious about the difference between the two, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a future video in which I discuss that. So in order to create a class-based component, I need to import component from React. And then we can create a new class. I'm going to call it rComponent. That extends component, and then it takes a render method, and inside the render method, a return statement. And in our case, we're just going to return a simple h1 that says hello. And now, down in our app component, we're going to call that component by saying rComponent and close that out. Now we should see hello on the screen here. And there we go, beautiful. All right, so to demonstrate props, it's very simple. So we're going to take a value, in this case it's going to be a string, and we're going to pass it to our component. And it's very simple. We're just going to say value equals hello, right? And we're going to get rid of our hello statement in the component up here, right? And inside curly braces, because this is JSX, remember, inside curly braces, we're going to say this.props.value. Now we called it value down here. You can call this anything you want, really, but we happen to just call it value. And if we go back and refresh, you can see that hello still renders the way we want it to. So that's how you pass a prop to a component. It's that simple. You literally just you name your prop whatever you want. In our case it was value, but I could have called it foobar if I wanted to. Let's change that just for an example. This.props.foobar. Refresh, and we still get our hello. You can name it whatever you want. But basically, this value is immutable in this component. There's no way I can change it. Now, what if I wanted to change it? Well, that's where state comes in. So, to demonstrate state, let's get rid of our prop here. We'll keep the h1, but we're going to leave it blank for now. Now, we're going to put an input below the h1. Okay? And don't forget that everything inside a React component needs to be wrapped inside one main container. So we're just going to make that, in our case, a div. I'll indent this for clarity's sake. And that gets rid of my syntax errors in the editor, right? So when I type into the input, I want to change this h1 depending on what I type in. Now, we wouldn't normally be able to do that with props, but with state, we can. State is mutable. We can change it. So on our input element, we're going to have an onChange method, okay? And inside curly braces here, we have a callback function. So we're going to pass it our event, which in our case is going to be the change of the input, right? And then we're going to call our own function that we're going to write here in just a second, called this.submit, and we'll pass it our event, okay? Now let's create the submit method. So up here, before our render method, we're going to create a new method called submit. This is going to take a parameter, we'll call it E, stands for event. And then we want to set the state of this component based off of what is passed in right here in our input, right? So I'm going to call, this is built into React, this.setState, and this is a method, and it takes an object, and that object is what we want to set the value of our state to be. So we're going to call it value. Again, you can call this whatever you want, and then we're going to pass it E from our event.target.value, and this is going to get the current value of the input element that we're typing into, okay? And now we need to actually initialize state. So the easiest way to initialize state is right here up above all of your methods. I'm just going to say state is equal to an object. We called our object key, we called it value. And I'm going to initialize that to an empty string, okay? So to recap, once this input element is changed, it calls our submit function that we made right here. This submit function sets the state's value to whatever the input value is, okay? And now in our h1 down in our render method, we can say this.state.value, getting the value of the state right here, okay? So let's try that out. So when I go in here, I don't have the heading yet, but when I type in, you can see that every time the input changes, the h1 changes as well. And this is the power of state. You can actually mutate the value of these components directly, whereas with props, they're immutable. You pass them to it. So there you have it. Hopefully now you understand the difference between props and state in React.js and when you would want to use one versus the other. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. If you liked this, be sure to smash that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button and bell so you don't miss any future videos. Until next time, take care.